Our intervals, C major, A minor, and related modes. This time looking at the E Phrygian mode, focusing on centering around measuring from the E note located on the 5th string down from the top of the guitar, fret number 5, and this is part number 2. One of our major objectives is to orientate all of our resources in the same direction, making them as easy on the eyes as possible from the perspective of the player of the guitar, who is of course located behind the guitar. Therefore, for example, my guitar is going to look like I'm playing left-handed, but no, we just flipped it around to mirror your perspective from behind your guitar as though you were playing it into a mirror. Similarly, our Excel worksheet representing the guitar fretboard will have this representing the low or heavy string, the one closest to the ceiling, top to bottom, left to right, orientated as though we just took our guitar and printed the strings on the screen. We're going to be continuing on with our interval work, working around this E note, which basically means we're going to be building the Phrygian mode. I want to give a quick recap of everything we're trying to pack in here as we do this. Before I do, though, I just want to note that I've gotten some comments that basically say, you know, why are we doing this? This isn't creative. This is repetitive. It's boring. It's kind of theory stuff, and that's not interesting. We want to see creative stuff, and I get that, but my argument would be that you have to basically get the concepts down, and the better you kind of have these concepts visualized in your mind, especially in the form of shapes, then you'll be able to make your fingers work those shapes and be able to be more creative because you have more territory that you understand and can basically work with, is the general idea. And I know how normally these kind of presentations work on like social media. How you're supposed to do this is you get on here and you tear it up, you play some really cool thing, and then you impress people, and then you basically imply that if you just take this, 20 minute, presentation, or even 4-minute presentation, you'll be able to do that. Right? I'm not going to make that claim. I'm not going to be claiming that I'm the best guitar player in the world. I'm an accountant who has been playing guitar for, over like 20, 30 years. I don't know. I've been playing for a long time. But what I have to offer that's possibly different is that, I work with Excel worksheets. I see patterns in a fretboard, which is basically what, in a spreadsheet, which is basically what the fretboard is. So I feel like that's the best thing I kind of have to contribute. I also, as a player that started learning after college, basically didn't get all of the ingrainment of the way the music system works as a young child. And therefore, that might be useful to people that are in my position that would like to learn some stuff as they're already grown in a way that might make a little bit more sense, because I'm going to spend more time learning it in a way that's not just going to be soaked in like you would when you're a younger person learning it. And part of that, I think, is flipping the guitar, being able to orientate everything in the same direction so that you can match up what you're doing on the fretboard to what's on the screen, as opposed to turning the tablature around or looking at actual music, sheet music, like you would on a piano and whatnot. So that's the idea here. And then I'm thinking, my thought process, what I actually do is work on this kind of stuff at least for 15 minutes a day or something, packing in as much theory as I can while my mind is working, which tends to help me expand my mind when I'm just being more creative, trying to just play things in a more creative way, because once again, the theory opens up my mind on the territory. It's like having a map of the territory. What are you going to do on the map of the territory? If you can understand the territory a little bit better, then you can have a better idea of how you're going to utilize that and work within it, right? And so that's what we're basically doing here. So the general thought process is, of course, we've got the C major is our normal Rosetta Stone that we compare everything to. We're looking at the normal shape, which I'm going to represent in my mind. I'm going to memorize it as the major shape, or these are the major shapes that you can memorize up and down the fretboard, breaking out into 5 shapes if you want to think about it that way. And as I do that, I'm going to think about it as the major shape and all related modes, which means that if I shift that shape up and down the guitar, I can shift it in 12 different positions, 12 notes in the musical alphabet, and all related modes go along with that shape, right? So that's how I want to kind of visualize the guitar, because that's the most systematic way to do it and be able to learn 12 times 7 shapes, because you're packing them under the same modes, or kind of packed together. And if you understand the shape, then you get all those other modes. Remembering that the way we can learn the shape, and it's useful to learn them and again, if you start learning them in different perspectives, then you'll start, when you're being creative, doing different things, because now your mind is working on basically looking at it from a different angle. So the angles you can kind of learn the shapes on are going to be, I could just learn the shape and noodle around the shape. And that's really useful to do, because then I can just say, okay, what can I finger around within this shape? And I can get creative doing that. I can also learn to basically make the shape by what we call the formula, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Not just from the major though. If I can learn that formula from each point in the formula, that can allow us to be creative, because it allows us to then pick any note and build the shape from that point. That's what I've got least experience doing. I'm going to try to work on that myself later. And right now we're working on the intervals, building it from the interval, meaning instead of just looking at the shape, we're going to pick every note within the interval and basically build the intervals around it, which again helps with the creativity, in that it allows you to more easily build chords, for sure, because now that if I can identify something and see the interval shapes around it, then I'll be able to see the chords that I'm building around it. And if I can see different variations of the chords I build around it, then every time I play a song that has a particular chord in it, I can more easily just find that root note and build a chord around it, so that I'm not always playing in open position, right? That's what the intervals really kind of open up for you, if you're able to see that. So instead of being restricted to just playing in open position, or just playing power chords along the top 2 strings, or even just bar chords, which are basically like an E major on the top string, or an E minor on the top string bar chord, or an A major or A minor based off the second string. Instead of being limited to that, if you knew all that, that'd still be super cool. That's a lot. But you can go beyond that by picking any note. You can find any note and build a chord on it, which again allows you to be creative, because if you're layering your material, then you'd like to be able to play in different registers and play on the high end of the guitar pitch-wise and low end on the guitar. So taking a little bit of time just to learn the boring theory stuff, which is that's what I have to offer as an accountant. I feel like it's worthwhile, and I feel like this is from my perspective as an accountant, the most working on a spreadsheet, which is the fretboard. I'm sorry to say that bothers people. It's not a fretboard. It's creative pixie dust. You can't call it a fretboard. You can't call it a spreadsheet. It's not a spreadsheet. It's a creative pixie dust board that you just learn magically by creativity. No, it's a spread. It's clearly a spreadsheet. Okay, you could break. If you break it down as a spreadsheet, you can learn the intervals on it, and then you can move them around and be creative. But so that's my rant on that. All right. So in any case, we're measuring around this note here, and remembering the fault line shifts this whole bit up, and this is where in my practice I'm less adept at, because I learned, as I think most people have, unless you've been working like with a band, or unless you've been doing this since you're a child and you had the worksheet upside down, right? So you're working on the top string was on the top of the sheet, and you read top to bottom, left to right, so you started working on this string a lot, right? But I think most people are going to learn open positions, then they're going to learn those top 2 strings and learn how to make bar chords off the top 2 strings, which means they're not as good at making chords from a root note that's on the bottom in part as well, because if they go above that root note, you have to look for the inverse distance to find the intervals, which is a little bit tricky. So it's really useful to try to visualize things starting from these bottom of the guitar and it's right next to the fault line, which is what we want to get an idea of, because the fault line throws everything up out of whack. That means that this tectonic plate shifted to the right. All right, so we're on the 3 node away. So the Phrygian intervals, if we look at the intervals, are going to be a 0 node away perfect first, a 1 node away minor second. That's the interval that's different from the Phrygian to the main minor, which is the Aeolian. So if I knew this shape, because I know this shape as the major shape and all of the minor, modes related to it, then I can take any of those modes and simply shift one interval to get to the related major or minor mode. In this case, I'm looking at a minor mode, the Phrygian mode. I can easily convert this shape by basically taking that one interval and making it into the minor interval, which would be a 2 node away, which would be a major second. So I can take this whole shape and just say, well, every time I find that G, right? Every time I find this F, I'm going to take this F and put it out here, and then I'll come up with a new shape. So that's one way that you can kind of basically start to build or see how the shapes are related as you go from a Phrygian shape to the minor shape, right? An F, in this case, an E Phrygian to an E minor shape, right? Anyway, so that's going to be the idea. So we have the 3 node away minor third. That's what we would expect in a minor mode, as the Phrygian is. It's the same on the minor scale. The major mode or Ionian mode has a 4 node away major third. The perfect fourth and the perfect fifth are what we would expect. They are still perfect. That makes sense on both the major and the minor. The sixth is an 8 node away minor sixth, which is what we would expect from a minor mode, same as the Aeolian or minor scale. It would be a 9 node away major sixth for a major mode typically, and we have a 10 node away minor 7, which is what we would expect. That's the same as the minor scale, minor mode, Aeolian mode. A major mode would have an 11 node away major 7. So basically the Phrygian is more minor than the main minor or minor scale. It does exactly what you would expect, the opposite of the major, meaning it takes all the intervals from the major and flattens everything except the perfects. And it even flattens the second, which not even the main minor does. That's the interval that's different, main minor being the minor scale. All right, so now we're on, so this 3 represents the third position in the scale. And then if I look at it from a chord construction, 1, 3, 5, it's going to be the same up top. Remembering the third gives the flavor of the triad chord. So it's one of the most important basically modes that we want to basically understand. Also, if you're going from a minor mode if you're going from a major blues to a minor blues, for example, the third is something that you might smear a little bit between the two of them. But as you're in a minor mode, it's a little bit harder to kind of go from the minor third to the major third, but you can kind of play with that. All right, so given that, we're looking for a 3 note away minor third. So if I'm on this E, 3 notes away would be right there on the same string. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, boom, boom. So there we have it, the E to the G, 3 note away minor third. What if I go above the string? Now, if I go above the string, because I'm on the fault line, right on this tectonic plate, I'm on the bottom continent, I go up to the top continent, I'm going to be crossing the fault line. So I'm going to say, all right, let's go back here. That's going to be the shorter distance. So when I cross the fault line, I usually think about crossing the fault line going from top to bottom. Most people think of the guitar that way. And we get to the idea, well, this tectonic plate shifted up this way, so I have to go diagonally. But that means that if I go from bottom to top, I get confused sometimes. Do I go like this? No, we go like this, right, to get that 5-note distance. So the 5-note distance would be like this. Now, what am I looking for? I'm looking for a 3 note away minor third. That means if I go above it, I have to find the inverse distance, which is 12 minus 3, or a distance of 9. So I'm going to go, this is going to be -5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's how I can basically count it up. 9 notes away would be a 9 note away, which would be a major 6. So the inverse of a minor is always a major. The inverse of a major is a minor. So I'm going to go, all right, I'm looking for a 9 note away distance. This is going to be going out here is going to be -5, 6, 7, 8, 9, open. So we're going to go, if I went from top to bottom, open G to E, that would be then a 9 note away major 6, bottom to top, therefore, would be a 3 note away minor 3rd. So if we go up 1 string and cross the fault line, then the 3 note away minor 3rd is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back. But this is the only time I would cross the fault line if I went up 1 string, because if I was down here, then I wouldn't have to cross the fault line, because the fault line's between the G and the B string. If I was up here somewhere, I wouldn't cross the fault line. So the general rule is, if I go up 1 string, the 3 note away minor 3rd is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets back. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. Unless I cross the fault line, in which case if I go up 1 string and cross the fault line, the 3 note away minor 3rd is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back. Now, this is the minor 3rd, so if I was looking at this G just to note and say, well, where would the major 3rd be? It's going to be 1 fret forward. The minor, when we look at anything that's a minor, you can also call it a flattened. It's been flattened, meaning we pushed it backwards towards the back of the guitar. So so we're going to say, all right, that's that. Let's go up to the next one. Otra vez, another one, next one, another time. Here we go, yo. We're going to go up 2 this time. So now we're going to be up here. So now we're going to say, all right, if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, we're looking for a 3 note away minor 3rd. Therefore, we look for the inverse distance. 12 minus 3 is going to be 9. So we're looking for a 9 note away distance. I have to cross the fault line. So I cross the fault line by going back this way, -5, and then it would be up 1 more to 10, and then -10, 9. So it's going to be, let's do it over here. If I was on the guitar, it's going to be -5, -10, and then 9. So we have this shape. If I went from top to bottom, whoops, would be a 9 note away, which would be a major 6 if I went from bottom to top. From the E to the G, the inverse distance, therefore, is a 3 note away minor 3rd. 3 note away minor 3rd. So, and where's going to be the major 3rd? Well, this minor 3rd's been flattened, so the major would be here. So you can kind of play with like smearing it back or something. Right. But you usually don't do that in the minor mode. You usually be going, if it was in a major, right, you're going from the minor to the major, doing that kind of more of a like a bluesy thing on a major blues. But all right, so then that's good. That means if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, the 3 note away minor 3rd is on the same string. But what if I didn't cross the fault line? I wouldn't cross the fault line if I went up 2 strings if I was on either the G or the D string. So if I was here, for example, then it would look like this. So the general rule is going to be, if I go up 2 strings, the 3 note away minor 3rd will be 1 fret forward unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on the bottom 2 strings, the B and the high high pitched E string. In which case, if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, the 3 note away minor 3rd will be on the same fret. Okay, let's go up to the next one. Next one, boom. Shock alaka. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so we're going to go up 3 strings and cross the fault line. So we're looking for a 3 note away minor 3rd. Therefore, we have to look for the inverse distance, which is going to be 12 minus 3, or a distance of 9. So if I go from here to here, this is going to be -5, -10, -15. 15 minus 12 is -3. -3, 2, 1, 0. There's the octave. So 0, it's either 0 or 12. 12, 11, 10, 9. Whew. All right, so long count. Now you might, well, let's just do it here. So we're gonna say this is gonna be -5, -10, -15. 15 minus 12 is -3, and then it's gonna be 3, 2, 1, 0. There's the octave, or 12. So 12, 11, 10, 9. So it's G. Now it's going to be quite a reach. It's still doable. 5 frets is about the maximum distance that your hand can typically reach. So from this G to that E is going to be, from top to bottom, would be a 9-note away, which would be a major 6. So the inverse, if I went from the bottom to the top, would be a 3-note away minor third. Therefore, if I go up 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 3-note away minor thirds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets up. But and I would cross the fault line almost all the time, but I would not cross the fault line if I was on the G string, right? Because I can only go up 3 strings if I was on these bottom 3 strings. 2 out of 3 times I would have to cross the fault line, unless I think about going around the top of the guitar, which we could if we take into account the double lean of the E string, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Let's say we go from here and we went up 3 strings. This G string, let's take it from here to this G over here, and then I got to bring it to the right. So if I went up here and went up 3 strings, well, 1, 2, 3, then it would be out here. And we also have, then that's right in the middle, back to here, because that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up and back. So if I go, the general rule then is if I go up 3 strings, then the 3-note away minor third will usually be 6 frets forward, which also means that it's going to be 6 frets back, because if you look at these 3 points, you can see that it's an equilateral triangle. 6 frets forwards, 6 frets back. If I had the choice of going forward or back from my fingering, I would think go forward, because I might be able to reach this one given the fact that the frets are smaller, right? Unless I cross the fault line. So if I cross the fault line from here, for example, and go up 3 strings, then the 3-note away minor third, because this fault line shifted in essence the root forward, the 3-note away minor third will only be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets forward, which is basically just reachable. All right, let's go to the next one. Pull up, give this stuff back down. All right, so now we're on the top bit. So now we're going to go up 4 strings. Now note, if I go up 4 strings, I might say, why would I count it up this way? I could count down, because these 2 strings are the same. That would be easier to do. So if I'm trying to say, what would it be on this top string, and I'm on the B string, I might say, well, let me find it on the bottom string first, and it'll be the same on the top string. So how can I do that? Well, I'm going to say, well, now if I go below it, I just need to look for the 3-note away instead of the inverse 9 notes away. So I go -5 and then 4, 3. So if it's a G down here, it must be in the same spot at the top. Or I can count it up to the top, in which case I have to look for the inverse distance. If it's a 3-note away minor third, in other words, 12 minus 3 is going to be 9. So it's going to be -5, -10, -15. 15 minus 12 is -3, plus another 5 is 8, and then 9. So I can count it out this way. So I'm going to say this is going to be -5, 10, 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, plus 5 is 8, and then 9. So we have this top to bottom from this G to E would be a 9-note away, which would be a major 6. If I go from bottom to top, it would be a 3-note away minor third. Therefore, if I go up 4 strings, then I will always cross the fault line, because you can't go up 4 strings and not cross the fault line, because if I started above the fault line here, there's not enough strings, right? So I would, unless I think about going around the top of the guitar, which you can do, but you have to take into account that these 2 strings are the same. Most of the time we don't think that way, right? Because why would we do that when we can think about going up or down within the guitar typically? But it's useful to think that way sometimes. But I'm just conceptually, because then you can understand what's happening more around the top of the guitar. But but in general, we're going to say you always cross the fault line. Therefore, it's always the case that if I go up 4 strings, then we're going to cross the fault line, and the 3-note away minor third will be 2 frets back. All right, if I go down below it, then we're going to go down here and say if I go below it, I'm looking. This is the shape that should be most familiar for a minor third. The major third would be right here. We're not crossing the fault line, even though we're on the bottom of the guitar. So now I don't need to look for the inverse distance of 12 minus 3 or 9. I just need to look for the 3-note away distance because I'm looking below the note. So therefore, it's going to be a 5-note distance between the strings. I don't need a diagonal distance here because the fault line is between these two, not between these two. So it's just going to be 5 and then 4, 3. So if I count it out here, it's going to be boom, 5, 4, 3. So top to bottom would be a 3-note away minor third, which means from bottom to top, by the way, of course, would be a 9-note away inverse, which would be a major 6. All right, so there is that. Let's try a joke before I go on to the next one. This is a long kind of, it's kind of a, I need to trim it down, I think, but you get the idea of it. I feel like I can Jerry Seinfeld it a while and work on the wording of it a lot. But anyway, here we go. Joke practice. You know, I realized after getting upset at my dang producer, for crying out loud, who once again keeps hiding cameras in the bathroom so we can post TikTok videos of me and fellow workers on the TikToks of me urinating. It's ridiculous. Which I really don't think that kind of thing is good for business, man. That doesn't seem like it's... Aren't there employee laws against that kind of thing? Oh, I see. Not for me. Oh, I see how it works. I see it how... Anyways, that's not the point. I was thinking that when people say, why don't you just move on, man? Why are you getting bothered by that? Why don't you just move on, man? You know, when people like say that, like, why don't you just move? It doesn't really make sense, that saying. That's what kind of stuck with me. And I mean, move on, when you say like move on, what does that even mean? Because you would think it would be moving forward or like moving away. If you just say like move on, it kind of sounds like you're walking on something. Like move on what? What am I supposed to be moving on top of? I can move on anything, man. I can move on sand. I can move on I could move on one of those giant workout balls while standing on it. I can move on a giant workout ball because I practice that. It's kind of fun, actually. I could even move on water. Well, maybe not that one. Unless I'm on like a surfboard or something, then I can move on water. You know, Phil the producer keeps on posting videos of people on TikTok claiming that it doesn't matter because nobody will recognize them. So it doesn't matter. It's like, whatever, Phil, you weirdo. I don't buy it, man. You need to be doged. You need to be doged. Elon Musk needs to clean house around here. That's what we need. We need some management reformation, man. Anyways, I feel like they can track anything these days. You know, the government can track anything, especially on TikTok, for crying out loud. You know, I feel like the CIA under the prior administration was probably copying the population surveillance techniques of China. I wouldn't doubt it at all. Where I hear they even have surveillance cams in every Chinese toilet, for crying out loud. That's right. They put the cams in the cans, man. I hear they claim that they have the entire 1.4 billion population logged in and identified using their state-of-the-art rectal recognition surveillance system. You know, that's not good. That's not good. But on the plus side, at least we have a new way that we can easily log into our iPhones. You know, so we have that going for us. But what I'm saying is, like, I'm telling you people, this is where the California water restrictions on your toilet flushes leads. This is the kind of thing it leads to, man. If when you pull down the toilet handle, the can whimpers instead of saying "VAAAAAAAAWOOOOOOSH," just like Al Bundy's toilet. If that's what happens, we're headed in the wrong. If it's whimpering instead of saying "VAAAAAAAWOOOOOOSH," we're headed in the wrong direction, man. I'm telling you. Now's the time to turn that crap around. Now's the time to turn that crap around. And you don't turn crap around with a whimpering toilet. You gotta need a VAAAAAAAWOOOOOOSH if you want to be turning crap around, you know? Anyways. All right, moving on to the next one. We're on the 5-note away perfect fourth. So the 4 right here represents the 4th position in the scale. 5 notes away represents the distance in half steps in notes, not to be confused with the 7-note away perfect 5th, noting that the perfects will be the same on the major and the main minor. So we have in the major scale the same perfect 4th intervals and perfect 5th. And it's the same in the main, minor, and major scale. And in this case, we're in the Phrygian, which doesn't change the perfect 4th. The only thing it does change from the minor scale, the main minor, is the interval of the 2nd, where it has the 1 note away. So this one we've seen before, but we are now measuring from right below the fault line, which is going to shift our shapes as we recognize them, and we're measuring them up above, which means we have to take a look at the inverse distance, not getting confused the difference between the 5-note away perfect 4th and the 7-note away perfect 5th. All right, so also note that we're on the 4th position, so therefore when we do a chord construction, we skip it. So that means we get the 1, 3, 5, that's our major chord construction. Then we jump up to the 7, we take all the odd ones, and then we go around the top to the 9, which is equivalent to the 4. So that means I could call it a 5-note away perfect 4th, or when I build chords, you might hear it called the 5-note away perfect 9th, because we don't use evens in the chord constructions, man. You gotta be odd if you want to be hanging with the chord. All right, so 5 notes away. If I just go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're looking at that A, E to A. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's the A. That's about as far as I can reach with one hand. Okay, if I go above it, then I have to look for the inverse distance. So I'm looking for a 5-note away perfect 4th. The inverse of the perfects are themselves, right? So the perfect 4th inverse is a perfect 5th. That's convenient. The problem is that the distance is 5 here, and then over here you have the perfect 5th. So it's easy to get those two things flipped out in your mind. So the inverse of a perfect 4th, inverse of a 5-note away perfect 4th is a 7-note away, which is the perfect 5th, right? So I'm looking for a distance of 7, which is going to be 12 minus 5 is 7. So if I go up above it, well, let's find it first. Let's be right there. Now, if I count above it, I'm going across the fault line. So here's the fault line down here. When I go down to the fault line, I have to go diagonal in order to count down. If I go back the other way, I have to go on the same road. All right, I got to go this way. I'm not going this way. Right, I've got to go this way and say this is going to be -5, 6, 7. So let's count that out here. So -5, 6, 7. So if I went from top to bottom, well, that would be a 7-note away perfect 5th. Therefore, from E to A, bottom to top, is going to be a 5-note away perfect 4th. Therefore, if I go up one string and cross the fault line, the 5-note away perfect 4th is 3 frets back. But I usually wouldn't cross the fault line. That's the only time I would cross the fault line, right? So if I was down here, for example, por ejemplo, I've been working on my Spanglish here. Dios, for crying out, Dios, for the love of God, míos. It's like Spanglish, English, and Spanish, but too much English, like too Englishy. Dios, for the love of God, míos, for crying, or what was my other one? Anyway, this is not focus, damn it, or dang it, focus. Okay, so we're going to go, so the general idea then would be if I go up one string, the 5-note away perfect 4th is 1, 2, 3, 4 frets back. unless I cross the fault line, which only happens on the B string, in which case if I go up one string, the 5-note away perfect fourth, which could also be called the 5-note away perfect ninth, is going to be 3 strings, 3 frets back. All right, got to get the terminology correct here. Let's go up 2 strings and see what happens. So we're going to go up to here. So now I'm looking for a 5-note away perfect fourth. I have to take the inverse distance, which is 12 minus 5, which is a 7-note away distance of 7. I have to go across the fault line, so it's going to be -5, -10, 9, 8, 7. So if I go from here, it's going to be -5, -10, and then 9, 8, 7. So top to bottom would be the 7-note away perfect fifth, but if I go from bottom to top, therefore, we get a 5-note away perfect fourth. 5-note away perfect fourth from the E to the A. Therefore, if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, the 5-note away perfect fourth, which can also be called the 5-note away perfect ninth, is 2 frets forward, but I wouldn't cross the fault line if I was starting on the G or the D string, and I could still go up 2 strings and not cross the fault line. So if I was on like this E, for example, I would be going out to here. So you might recognize this shape. Remember, as you're looking at these shapes, you're probably recognizing them from top to bottom if you recognize it, right? You can recognize this shape going this way and as a perfect fifth, right? And the inverse is a perfect fourth if I went from the bottom to the top. So that means that if I go up 2 strings, the 5-note away perfect fourth will be 3 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which would happen if I start on the bottom B or the E string, in which case if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, the 5-note away perfect fourth, which could also be called the 5-note away perfect ninth, will be 2 frets forward. Okay, let's go to the next one. Let's crank this thing out. We're going to go up. So this is the long distance one. Let's go all the way out. This is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, we'll go back. This is here. Okay, so we're going to go back here. So I'm looking for the 5-note away perfect fourth, which could also be called, so if I'm go up, which could also be called the 5-note away perfect ninth. If I go above it, I have to look for the inverse distance, which is 12 minus 5, or a distance of 7. I'm crossing the fault line, therefore I go diagonal first this way. So that's going to be 5, distance of 10, distance of 15, and then 15 minus 12, because there's only 12 notes in the musical alphabet, I'm going to call that -3, -3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so that's about as far away as we can get there. So it's going to be diagonal this way, -5, 10, 15. Wait a sec, let me do that again. -5, -10, -15. 15 minus 12 is -3. -3, 4, 5, 6, 7, open A. So if I went from that open A to the E, that would be a 7-note away perfect fifth, and therefore if I go from the bottom to the top, the E to the A, that would be a 5-note away perfect fourth. Therefore, if I go up 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 5-note away perfect fourth, which could also be called the 5-note away perfect ninth, will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back. And I would cross the fault line almost every time that I can go up 3 strings, because I can only go up 3 strings on these 3 from these 3 positions. Otherwise, I run out of room unless I go around the top of the guitar. But I could go from this G string and I would have room. So if I went up 3 strings from here, I would be going to there. So my general rule would be, if I go up 3 strings, the 5-note away perfect fourth will be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on either the B or the E string, in which case, if I go up 3 strings, the 5-note away perfect fourth, which could also be called the 5-note away perfect ninth, will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back. Okay, let's go up to the top string, and so we're going to say ba-boom. So now I'm looking for the 5-note away perfect fourth, which could also be called the 5-note away perfect ninth. I'm going above it, therefore I look for the inverse distance. 12 minus 5 is 7, distance of 7. I go diagonal first, so that's going to be -5, 10, 15. 15 minus 12 is negative 3, plus 5 is 8, and then back to 7. Now you might say I could have done that more easily by going to the string below it and noting it'll be the same as the one above it, because that'll be easier to do. If I did that and I was looking for the 5 away perfect fourth, then I don't need to look for the inverse distance to go below it. I just look for a distance of 5, which is right below it, instead of diagonal, because there's no fault line. And if the A is this here, it's going to be the same note up top. But let's count it out this way. If I went it here, it'd be negative 5, negative 10, negative 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, plus another 5 is 8, and then back to 7. So if I went from top to bottom, A to E, that would be a 7 away perfect fifth, bottom to top, E to A, therefore 5 away perfect fourth. Therefore, if I go up 4 strings, I will always cross the fault line unless I think about going around the top of the guitar, because I can't get there if I'm above the fault line. I can't go up 4 strings. So therefore, I don't even really have to say I'm going to cross the fault line. I'm just going to say, well, if I go a distance of 4 strings up or down, then the 5 away perfect fourth is going to not if I go down, but I'm just going to say the distance is this. I'm going to cross the fault line if I went 4 strings up or down. So if I go 4 strings up, then the 5 away perfect fourth will be on the same fret. Let's go below it, which we already took a look at briefly. If I go below it, it's going to be here. That should be the most familiar position, noting that I no longer cross the fault line because now I'm on the continent. There's only 2 strings on this small continent down here, but I'm still remaining on that one continent. So therefore, no fault line. I don't need to do a diagonal distance. I don't need to look for the inverse distance because we're going below it. So I just need to look for a 5 away perfect fourth, which is just 5 notes away right underneath it. So therefore, if I go down right below it, top to bottom, E to A, 5 away perfect fourth, which by the way, of course, means that if I went from bottom to top, that would be the inverse 7 away perfect fifth. All right, so then we'll move on to the last few next time.